This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, from Philadelphia to Erie and from Pittsburgh to Scranton, it's Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenewalt, Senior Fellow of the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, and I'm joined as usual by my co-host, Maura Donnelly. Hi, Maura.
Hello, Charlie.
Why, it's been a long summer, but a summer filled with lots of politics and lots of presidential politics
Stuff.
as well.
Yeah, hard to avoid.
But as well, we find that the fall is coming, and with the fall comes school bells, and with that we look at what is the state of education currently in Pennsylvania as all our children go back to school and our older children go back to higher education. Speaking of higher education, who's better to talk about that than Ken Mash, the president of ABSCUF. Ken, welcome back to the show. It's nice to have you.
Thank you, Charlie. It's great to see you. It's great to see you, Maura.
Nice to see you, Ken.
Well, we wondered if you could give us a sort of an update on what happened with Pennsylvania higher education in the most recent state budget, Ken.
So, we're heading into fall, but in academia, it's kind of like spring, because it's all about renewal. We get our students come back and, we're filled with excitement and opportunity. And so, that's always just a great mood on our campuses as we start to see them show life.
There's nothing
again.
like the first day back.
Absolutely. And, I think it's fair to say that when it comes to higher education in Pennsylvania, there's also a sense of renewal. And at the very least, some sense of hope, because after such a long time of not properly funding public higher education, what we've started to see over the last few years is support from the legislature, and especially with this governor, renewed attention to higher education, and especially public higher education.
With Governor Shapiro.
Yes, Governor Shapiro has done that. And so we're fortunate for the state system of higher education, which is the universities that our faculty and coaches are in, that we saw a 6% increase in our budget. We also saw some money, much needed money, for some debt relief at our institutions. So, I don't want to go overboard about it because we were so far in the hole. But after a couple of years now of us having increased budgets, there is reason to hope. And so, we're not number 50 anymore. But, we're moving up slowly to where we should be, at least, in the middle of the pack among the states. We're not there yet. We have a way to go, but hopefully we're going to head in that direction. Also happy for our community colleges who got a 6% increase. And I think there's some exciting things, too, that we're going to see that comes out of this new State Board of Education that State Board of Higher Education that has been created, and they're going to look to coordinate the various different parts of higher education.
I read that there were a lot of different types of scholarships also that were funded in this budget. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, well, I know that there's the merit scholarships that do provide money for students coming from out of state, geared towards certain professions, and that's true. There's also additional money for Pennsylvania residents, looking to attract students from out of state, but also to try and to make sure that we have people in the workforce that we need to fill certain holes that have,
Is that
really
like
exist.
teachers and nursing?
Exactly.
Examples? Okay.
Exactly. So, where we have those holes, it looks to try and fill those holes. And I mean, especially appreciative because people are starting to put together the dots. And so what happens is that, we know that in order to attract businesses to come to Pennsylvania, we're going to need an educated workforce. And right now we're going to be understaffed as far as people go. So I'm glad that we're starting to see those connections. And of course, our hope is that the legislature and the governor goes even further and supports things like the Pennsylvania Promise, which we support.
Well, as you had said just a moment ago, Ken, we were on on sort of a downward spiral for a while, and we seem to be moving now and back into the right direction. But when we were in the middle of that downward spiral and we were cutting the funding and we were consolidating state university campuses and so forth, there are some subject areas that really took a hard hit, like foreign languages, for example. Are we going to be able in the future to replace those areas or repair them? What happens to the cuts that we made in higher ed in the future?
So I think, part of the hope is if we are able to continue to keep higher education affordable, and it should be noted that the state system of higher education has not raised tuition for 7 years now straight.
That is right.
So there's another freeze this year.
Yeah, there's
in
another
tuition.
freeze in tuition this year. That will make our system more attractive, which would get us more students, which would put us in a better financial position as well. But we also have a hope that we can, in the meanwhile, start to do some things to meet student needs and to give the students really what they need to be successful. So for things like foreign language and philosophy and other subjects which have taken a hit, which are really important subjects to have at a university, I know that there's an increased move to coordinating universities to have them work together so that students may be able to take some courses online, some courses at their home university, and be able to mix those together so that we could offer more majors in those fields than we can do at the moment.
Ken, what else is new in the state system since we've seen you last?
Well, the chancellor is stepping down, so this means that we're going to be in transition for a bit, and there's going to be a national search as they look for a new chancellor. We've also got, we have a contract, which is a good thing from our perspective in doing it, and we're really looking. I think in these next couple of years, what we're hoping to do is to, at those universities where there was the consolidation, to really get them on a solid footing, to make sure that they are stable financially, but also that it's working in the best interest of the students.
We've had you on our show for years. We won't try to figure out how many years, but a lot of years. This is probably the most optimistic I've heard you about the future of higher education in Pennsylvania. A little bit of an unfair question. I think a lot of that optimism is coming from the top, from the governor. What grade would you give him right now?
Oh, I mean, I'd give him, an A- maybe, because, to get to the A, we really would like
Nobody's
to
perfect.
Well, we would like to see some push for something that's much more bold as far as, like the Pennsylvania Promise, which really would, cover tuition, not the entire cost of college, but cover tuition at our institutions, at community colleges, which would really be attractive to students out of state, right? And we wouldn't be alone in doing that. New York does it now, and they are, they've gotten a big windfall from doing that, and other states are doing it also. So I think there's room for him to improve in that way too.
But it seems to be a commitment on his part, so that's really good news.
I think he's focused. Mm-hmm. It's the first time I remember in a long time where higher ed was such a focus, and a focus in a positive way, not in a negative way.
In the last minute and a half, Ken, where does APSCO go from here?
We're looking, as we always do, to serve our students and to do the best job that we possibly can. We're going to, again, fight for our universities and try and get those policies passed through the legislature that, again, create the best environment for student learning and for our student athletes as well, for our coaches.
Thank you, Ken, for being with us and giving us an update on higher education. We look forward to having you on the show again, and good luck in the new school year. Maura and I will be right back with another segment of Behind the Headlines. Stay tuned.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, the largest, most influential municipal association in the Commonwealth. Since 1921, PSATS has been preserving and strengthening township government and securing greater visibility and involvement for townships in the state and federal political arenas. Covering 95% of Pennsylvania's land mass, townships represent 5.5 million residents, more than any other type of political subdivision in Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Visit pahighwayinfo.org.
Hi, welcome back to Behind the Headlines. Maura and I, in this segment, are lucky enough to be joined by Dave Sanko, the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors. And I know, Dave, you've been a big admirer of Ronald Reagan and some of his accomplishments throughout the term in office. You find that there's a new movie coming out about him with Dennis Quaid, and some were wondering if he would be able to nail the role. But apparently he's nailed it so well that Facebook now is reneging on some of the advertising time that they promised for the movie.
How about that? I have not seen, but there is only one Gipper, with no disrespect to Mr. Quaid.
That's true. That's very true.
Yes,
I have a hard time picturing that, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that works.
Yeah, we'll all look forward to seeing that. That should be an interesting endeavor, to say the least. But Dave, we were wondering if you could bring us up to date, essentially. If you could explain to us, again, about what the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors is. Of course, you're the executive director. Could you explain to us what PSATS is, and what does it do for local government in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Sure. Well, in Pennsylvania, everybody lives in a county, municipality, and a school district. We represent parts of all those municipalities. Townships represent 95% of all the land mass in Pennsylvania, almost 5.7 million people. So our job is to help make sure that those local elected officials have the tools and resources to do their job better, to help serve their communities and provide quality local government at affordable cost. And we do that through training and education and publications and our annual conference, and just the sharing of best practices, because everybody has the same problems, and we try and help share the solutions.
So it's back to school time. Does that have any meaning to your townships?
Well, I think it does. I mean, clearly the townships have to do, are responsible for the roads, and the school buses are back on the roads, and that's an important time of year. We also, as an association, gear up a lot of our education and training going into the fall sessions as well. And when it comes to Harrisburg, it also often becomes when they've returned from their summer vacation and they're ready to get back to work. But it's an election year, so there's not going to probably be a whole lot of work getting done, because they've got to get back home to campaign as well. So we're hopeful of some positive outcomes, but always wary of mischief.
Oh, mischief.
Well, Dave, we were talking about the new movie on President Reagan, and of course that is being released at a good time to snag viewers, I imagine, since it's a presidential election year. And we're wondering if the presidential election years have a special impact on local governments here in Pennsylvania.
Well, I think it makes most people grateful that they have a local government, and that you don't have to count on, and that those local supervisors don't go out and buy television advertising when it's time for their reelection. They go and they knock on their doors,
Yeah.
and they visit and they represent their community, and it's not a situation where a whole bunch of folks in Washington think they know best for everybody, or folks in Harrisburg think they know best for everybody. It's an opportunity to really celebrate why local government works best.
So in the past, we've talked about there being a charge for the townships for local police coverage. What is the update on that? Are we seeing more of that, or
Well, I think the one of the foundations, Pennsylvania State Police, was created back in the early 1900s to provide public safety for all Pennsylvanians.
Right.
And that mission has not changed. They still do that. There are communities that would like additional coverage, additional law enforcement, additional local code enforcement. Those communities will put on local police departments or regional police departments, and they'll make that extra investment. But everybody pays their income taxes, and everybody is entitled to a baseline coverage of law enforcement, which we get from the state police. Every couple years, there are some folks in Harrisburg who want to start charging for that coverage for state police. And at the end of the day, that's really not about public safety at all. It's more about Harrisburg just trying to collect more money
Yeah, revenue
from
generation.
folks. So they'd get more money, and the local communities that would be forced to pay those additional dollars will get no more coverage. We'll get no additional layers of protection, no more state police, because they don't grow the complement. They're struggling to fill the complement we currently have. And so there's a great partnership between state police and local police.
Well, Dave, in terms of new initiatives, we've heard that there's a movement dedicated to making workers safe by building a state OSHA program for local government. Can you tell us anything about that?
Is that good or bad?
Well, look, I think local governments are all about making sure their workers are safe. I mean, most of the workers that Pennsylvanians will see from local governments will be the folks who are working on the road crews and fixing roads. So we do things to try and make sure those are safe. I think local governments are committed to that safety level. I think OSHA was formed again probably back in the 1900s when there were private businesses or corporate sector that weren't as concerned for safety. And they put rules in place and had fines. And it's one thing to fine a corporation or a business, but in this instance, if you create a state program for local governments and municipal governments, and first you're assuming they're doing things wrong, and they're not. So you're
Okay.
going to create a bureaucracy to oversee and wind up going, everything's okay, but that's going to cost money to do that. And if they do find a violation, that fine is, I mean, who are you really fining? I mean, you're fining the taxpayers.
Right.
It's not, fining you or fining me. It's not about a corporate entity. So I think there is concern about doing those things. We're doing a lot of things right. Workers, I think, are safe. Just a couple wild examples of what would happen. There's some of the kind of rules you'd have to comply with. Most of them will raise additional costs. So if there were a Pennsylvania OSHA program, there would be, when in the winter, when you go out to plow the trucks or plow the snow, you'd have to have two drivers or two people in each truck, a driver and then a safety person in case the driver needs a break or gets sick or what have you. So it doubles the cost of in plowing the roads. Another example, and we saw an instance there are some states that have state OSHA programs. In the Midwest, a fire department was cited, because this would apply to local governments and nonprofits. So it would apply to fire departments, ambulance squads, everybody. A fire department was cited for not having the fire extinguisher where the Washington bureaucrat thought the fire extinguisher ought to be. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm going to trust the fireman for knowing where the fire extinguisher ought to be.
Because he knows where it is.
Because he knows where it is, and he knows where the building, and he knows where the risks are, not some bureaucrat sitting in Washington. And the third one is kind of even more bizarre. All of our public buildings, public works buildings, have a garage door where the trucks go in. You would be fined if you walked through that door, because the OSHA rules say that you're not allowed to walk through those doors. You have to go around and use a regular 6-foot tall human door, because those overhead doors are on springs and they have rollers and they could fall and they could hit you. So you get fined for walking through and if you have a garage door at home.
Bureaucracy is at its best.
Be careful, because it's, it would be just that. It would cost $3 million just to spin up the program. And it really is another example of who do you want making decisions about keeping your community safe? Is it Washington knows best, or Harrisburg knows best, or local communities
So
know best?
when you talk about snow removal, I'm immediately thinking, if you have to put two people in one truck, that means there's only maybe, in some cases, one truck on the road, which means most places won't even get plowed. At least not in a timely manner.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, if you have two trucks and two drivers, you now have one
One
truck
truck.
with two drivers.
Yeah.
Or they would want you to have
With one person on
hire
their
two more
phone the whole
people.
time. Because
Right.
there's nothing to do.
Or
Wow.
hire more people, and so you're going to get less work done. and more. It's going to cost more.
So not good.
That's
it's
funny.
not-
My father-in-law was a PennDOT employee, career employee, and he drove a snowplow in the wintertime for PennDOT. And I think he would have liked to have another person there to trade and swap jokes
Just to
with.
talk to,
But
sure.
I don't think in his whole career he ever needed a second person there.
Right.
So that would have been all for naught.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and again, safety is paramount, and I think we are trying to make sure that our workers are safe, as I think most responsible employers are. So the idea of creating a bureaucracy and collecting more money, whether it's for an OSHA type program or to charge for the state police, it's almost like Harrisburg is this giant vacuum, and it's going around trying to pick up any dollars laying around Pennsylvania and take them to Harrisburg.
Ridiculous. So one of the biggest platform issues for all of our candidates, especially even on the presidential level, is affordable housing. And it's been called a housing crisis. That's just, I don't even know how we catch up with the number of houses that we need. Does Harrisburg have any solutions? I'm almost afraid to ask, but does Harrisburg have any solutions to the housing crisis, and are the townships involved? I mean, imagine that's a big issue in a lot of townships.
Well, at the end of the day, and from a very foundational standpoint, local land use, deciding the types of land use, whether it's commercial or residential or agricultural, and what types of housing go there, are in fact local decisions and vary from community to community, because every community is different, and those decisions ought to be made at the local level. Does Harrisburg have any solutions, or they have some ideas?
Good or bad?
And sometimes the Harrisburg ideas are solutions in search of a problem, or a hammer in search of a nail. So I think their solution is to, and it's been done in a couple other states. So it's been done in Minnesota, it's been done in California, Oregon, Washington, is to take that local land use control away from the local government and standardize it and preempt it and put it at Harrisburg. And that Harrisburg would say, what we're going to have, you're going to be able to build twins and triplexes and quadplexes on parcels that are zoned for single family, and that's just the way it is, and the local community has nothing to say about it. So I think, again, it comes down to who do you want to make those decisions? Do you want them made by people locally in a community, or do you want them made by someone off in a state capital somewhere, or sometimes even worse, further away in Washington, D.C.?
Well, Dave, the drive for affordable housing and the need for more affordable housing, isn't that perhaps a need that has been dumped on many of the local governments by Washington, D.C., in terms of the Biden administration over 3.5 years has let in as many immigrants, illegal immigrants, that came through Ellis Island. So we've had 3.5 years, and the number of illegal immigrants that have come in equals the number that came in for 60 years in Ellis Island.
Sure. Well, and I think there's a coalition put together to try and talk about how this housing is. But at the end of the day, when you look at it, it's builders and realtors and folks who are going to make money off of more housing. And they blame the cost of housing on local government, and their process is slow. So that's the argument for taking it away and doing it at the state level. We've looked around, and I don't know. To me, the cost of housing is high because of interest rates. Mm-hmm. The cost of housing is high because of the cost of land. The cost of housing is high because of inflation, supply chain challenges. Mm-hmm. Workforce challenges. There's a whole bunch of things that make housing expensive. Local government isn't one of them.
And it's not going to be solved overnight.
You're not going to fix it overnight.
No. It's going to be years.
It's going to be years,
Yeah.
and I think you have to take a look. I mean, we've heard for years Pennsylvania is losing population. We keep losing congressional seats, and the population continues to tank.
How
How
do we have
are
a
we
crisis?
having a housing problem? Because we had enough houses
keep losing.
before.
Go get their
when we
house.
had millions of
Yeah.
a million more people. So I think there's a lot of challenges. That's not to denigrate the issue, because I mean, clearly giving people a place to live and safe. I mean, the bigger question is giving them safe and affordable places to live, and that's driving them into townships. Now, all of those choices that make for affordable housing are choices that are available today. And at the local level, and local townships are making those decisions on a monthly basis when they have their meetings. And if they want to put high-density housing in, they have that option. If they want to put twins or quads in, they have that option. But those are options that are localized at a community level to see what that community can withstand and bear, not some mandate that comes from Harrisburg.
Yet everywhere we look in South Central Pennsylvania, there's housing construction. And I've never seen it as lively and as robust as it is today. What are the trends around the state, Dave, in terms of housing construction?
I think
how are we doing?
we're seeing housing construction all across Pennsylvania in different areas to meet the demand, to meet the needs, but they struggle with the same kinds of supply chain issues, the same kinds of where we're going to get workers. I mean, they're taking longer to build because you can't get this. I mean, and that the longer it takes to build, the more they cost at the end of the day because supplies cost more.
And what we're seeing built might not be affordable to a lot of people too, as well. Although people do move up, and
They do.
there's a lot
but
involved in the
There's a
whole
lot
issue.
involved.
Yeah.
I mean, we've spent decades in the southeastern part of the state with an emphasis on open space preservation. And as all that land came off the rolls, that left what land was left costing more. So the houses that are left there wind up costing more. And we just saw a mall in Bucks County, Oxford Valley Mall, has just been converted to apartments.
Yeah.
And they range from $1,900 to $3,300. $1,900 for a one bedroom and $3,300 for a three bedroom.
That's crazy.
And and they say that's affordable.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Well, people living in Jersey City would think that's wonderful.
And, that's an interesting observation because
Yeah.
as we see some of the prices, I mean, we're seeing an influx of folks from New York and New Jersey and from Baltimore on the southern border and from, on the Ohio. People are coming to Pennsylvania because it's an affordable place to live based on where they came from. So they have, they can sell their home in New York City, come here, get twice the size for half the price.
true.
And that's one of the realities.
Yep.
And one of the realities is that we're out of time.
Oh, no.
Unfortunately, Dave, thank you so much for coming by and giving us an update. And we ask all of you to tune in again next week for another episode, another segment of Behind the Headlines. Maura and I will see you then.